Hello, welcome back. Or if you happen to be new, my name is Delian. This is the channel where we explore becoming the main character of our own lives, which I believe we're all here to do. And this is the Enneagram series where I break down every type and what I believe their journey is towards transformation. So if this kind of content is interesting to you, helpful, or valuable in any way, I would love if you would like, subscribe, or comment. I live for the comments. Tell me about your experience with your Enneagram type, what you would nuance with what I'm saying. This is essentially what I feel like a living document of a channel where we get to explore together. So I can't wait to see you in the comments, and let's go ahead and start. Okay, so now we're on to the 5's. Before we start, as you can see, puppy dog is right here. And also, if you happened to have listened to the other videos I've done, 1 through 4 of the Enneagram and the character arcs, you'll notice that for this one, in true 5 fashion, I have looked at the data and done a couple edits, not of the information, but in the order that I feel like it actually makes more sense. So again, that's just if you've been listening to the other videos, you may notice that there's been an edit in how the process of the information is being given. But and also, I hope it's okay. I'm wearing glasses today. I didn't get like great sleep last night, and so my eyes are very tired. So this will be the first video that I do with glasses, and it felt appropriate since we're, being intellectual with the 5's. All right. So as I've been mentioning in the other videos, but if you haven't watched those videos, I'm basing this process on the idea that if I was creating a character for a story, be that a book, movie, TV show, but where a character needed to go through a transformation arc, what are the questions I would need to ask and answer in order to really understand that character? And I think that being able to I have all of those questions and then being able to answer them through the lens of the Enneagram type, which, by the way, I think this is one of the reasons we love stories, is because we can see very clearly and even cleanly what a person's transformation journey is. And that's why the clearer that is in a story, the more we like it. And also, it's probably pretty easy to see what that Enneagram type is for that character. So for all great characters, the first thing that you need to ask is, what do they want? And what do Enneagram 5's want? Well, they want to be capable, knowledgeable, and I think really importantly, to be self-sufficient. I think that they want to understand the world and from there have the resources they need to navigate the world. And I think that 5's believe that this will give them security. We'll get into that as we continue on. And so again, that's a fine want. There's nothing wrong with that want. But then, as it is for all characters that go through a transformation, there needs to be a wound. There needs to be an issue that they're having to deal with. And there's usually an internal one and an external one. But the external one usually parallels the internal one for really great stories. So what is the Enneagram 5's wound? The narrative, right, that they have about themselves and about life that I've been saying it's the narrative they adopted in order to adapt to circumstances. So what is this narrative? For 5's, it's, I do not have enough within me, and so therefore I must acquire knowledge and data, perhaps even a skill set, before they can fully participate in life, because this is what they need in order to navigate life. That they themselves, just as they are not able to navigate all of the things that life can throw at you. I think that for 5's, it can be really overwhelming. to, yeah, like I think for 4s and 5s in particular, and if you're not a 4 or 5, please let me know if this also applies to you. But I think for 4s and 5s, like the humaning feels really weird. It's like, what is this? And so, anyway, I digress. What is the intelligence of Enneagram 5s? Like, what is their natural strength, the natural way that they see and move through the world? And 5s are in the head center. So they are analyzing, they're strategizing, they're in their head, they're able to really prioritize things being able to be understood, right? So this also means that they are resource driven, that they want security. Again, you can hear some of that self-sufficiency language in for the 5s here. And from all of this, let's now move into what is their fear. We love it when a character has a gripping fear, because the bigger the fear, the greater the transformation feels for not just them, but for all of us who get to watch the story unfold. And so for 5s, I believe that the fear is being helpless, being incapable, feeling overwhelmed. And I love these two words. If you're a 5, please let me know if it tracks. They fear being invaded or depleted. And this is going along with a bunch of the other things that I've been talking about too, but like being unable to handle the demands of life. You don't need to itch that. I know it's itchy. She got half her butt shaved for her surgery, and so the fur is growing back. Anyway, so if that's the fear, I think that this is where the vice can show up. And for 5s, the vice in Enneagram language is known as avarice. I think synonyms can be like greed or even hoarding. But the way that I like to think about it for 5s in particular is that they need to constantly be gathering data, information, so that they can be prepared enough, and also to protect their energy. Of all of the types, 5s have the least amount of energy, and they are very protective over how that energy gets spent. Their energy might be one of the most primal resources that they are working with. And so they believe that if they just gather enough information, if they just know enough about what they need in order to be competent, then they will feel safe and capable and resourced. And so therefore their strategy is to gather knowledge, to observe from a distance, to conserve energy, detach emotionally, master subjects, right? Like hyperfixation, I think, is a big thing for 5s, but I just heard 5 talk about that yesterday. And they think that if they do that and continue and like master a skill, I think that 5s, and again, tell me if I'm wrong about this. If you're listening and you're 5, let me know. But I think that 5s can put their identity into what they are skilled in, because that gives them a sense of security. But let me know if that makes sense. And then their stance, how they're going to make all of this happen, is that they withdraw. They're in the withdrawn stance, just like us 4s. And the idea is that they're going to withdraw, they're going to detach, they're going to preserve their energy, they're going to preserve their information, and they are going to, while in that withdrawn state, be gathering all of the information they feel like they need. And once they find all of the answers, then that's when they think they'll be able to engage in the world, and sometimes even in their life. And so there's some overlap here between 4s and 5s, because 4s and 5s are both in the withdrawing stance. If you listen to the 4 character breakdown I did, or character arc breakdown I did, I think that it's hard to find characters who are 4, 5s, and 9s in particular, because we are in the withdrawn stance. And a lot of stories are based on momentum of the characters like moving towards something. And so and it'll be interesting if you have Enneagram 5 characters that you love and that like really feel like they embody the Enneagram 5 character transformation arc, let me know in the comments. But I think unless they really bring up action, which is the least accessible for 4, 5s, and 9s, it's harder to make a story about 4, 5s, and 9s. And so they're not the easiest characters to write or to present. That is my theory. And so because the 5s are in the withdrawn stance, that means that they are withdrawing and they have thinking first. Feeling is technically second in their stance. And I may do a full video on my current theory about 4s and 5s in particular, and their stacking of thinking, feeling, and doing. But feeling is next. And then the least accessible is action. And if you are in the Enneagram circles, there's a lot of teachers out there who will share that if you're not going to do anything else with the Enneagram, except for this one thing, it would be to work on that least accessible area. So for 5s and for 4s, it's stepping into action. 5s can have this inherent fear that stepping into action is going to, again, deplete them, that they don't have enough information or data to be able to actually engage with life. And I think that the only thing I'll say about this, and I talked about this with 4s, it'll be interesting to hear what 9s are, but 4s and 5s, like 4s will go into action in order to become more unique or special, be motivated by that. 5s can go into action by going and gathering information, data. I think Sherlock Holmes, right? Like, especially Benedict Cumberbatch's version. I think that Robert Downey Jr. is a 3 and plays Sherlock Holmes as a 3 in those movies. But there's the momentum that 5s can have is sometimes like, I will get up and I will go do things in order to go get the knowledge that I need. But there are probably areas in your life that as a 5, you might not be engaging with, at least if you're writing a character who is having to go through all of this. These are elements you might be able to start noticing in their storyline. So what does it take for them to go through that transformation arc? I believe the transformation happens for the Enneagram types when we take our wound, the story of our wound, and we turn it around. We make it its opposite. And we start living, not all at once, because I think that this is a muscle. Like neuroplasticity is a thing. Being able to retrain our brains, it's a thing that doesn't just happen in one moment, but to dedicate ourselves to living in the new narrative. And the opposite narrative of the wound. So the wound narrative is, I do not have enough within me. I must acquire knowledge, data before I can participate in life, right? And again, if you're 5, let me know if you would nuance that. I live for the comments. And so the opposite of that was that I already have what I need within me. You don't have to understand everything before you participate in your life. Your life will teach you and give you more data through engagement, not just observation. I think this is crucial for 5s, and I also get that it might be really, really hard. I feel you. And I keep saying this in all of the videos, this is why Act 2 is so friggin' long and hard, right? Because it's really big work to go through this. And in fact, we don't like the stories where it's not. We don't like it when Act 2 gets skipped and the character goes from being in their wound or weak in a certain area, and suddenly, without even like having to do anything, they're brilliant and skilled. And like, no, we love watching the hard work because it resonates. We know that that is truer. And then as fives start living in this new narrative, we start seeing them being able to exist in the virtue state. There's lots of commentary out there about fives and the virtue state, but I like non-attachment, not detachment, because I think detachment is something that fives can do as a defense mechanism that's like generally characterized by coldness or physical distancing or avoidance. But non-attachment is still being able to be fully present. It's I want to say non-attachment is technically a Buddhist term, definitely in the Zen realm, but it's this ability to be like fully present and connected to the moment without having to tie your sense of inherent security to what happens, right? Because I think that fives are trying to navigate all of these life things, and they're doing that again by gathering information, gathering knowledge. But what happens when you don't have to potentially control for the outcome? Then you can be present, you can experience what it means to engage and enact in your life without having to be prepared with having all of the answers. And then this is when we start seeing that final shift, right? The final act where they begin engaging with life from trust rather than disengaging in the name of preparation, right? They stop collecting knowledge as a shield, and then they begin sharing all of their wisdom, their presence, and gifts with the world. I also think that there's something interesting that happens for fives. I haven't talked about this with all the other numbers. Let me know if this tracks. I think that the shift starts showing how fives in particular go into being able to use their knowledge to be very protective of people. I think that there's, it might be some of that security number at 8, but there's this thing of like taking all of this information, and some of what happens, I think, is that you end up being a bit justice oriented. You end up protecting people. I think it's still in a very 5 way. It's not like, I don't think we're not going to be our number through life. I don't adhere to that way of thinking about the Enneagram, but I do think that there is a wounded narrative and that there's a healed narrative of each of our types. And as a 5 moves into the healed narrative, they have so much to offer. And I just noticed that it seems to have a bent towards protection and justice with the data that they have accumulated, because there's no doubt that you know plenty. So there it is. Let me know if this tracks, if this feels right, if there's things that you're noticing that you'd be like, oh, I'd nuance that, or I'd add this, or I love hearing the experience, the true experience that each of the types have. And of course, this is a very 5s, please forgive me. This is like just touching the surface. And I realize that. I can't wait to be able to do the deeper dives where I can go through a character and just really suss out all of the different elements of how an Enneagram type literally moves through their life and even through that transformation journey. So thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here. Again, if this was valuable at all, please like, comment, subscribe. I am so thankful for all of the comments. I really do think that this channel can be more of a, like, instead of me telling you what the Enneagram is or even astrology or all of these resources that I'm sharing, that I hope help people step into being that main character of their own story. I don't have the answers. I am sharing what I know, and being able to hear what you know is really exciting to me. And I like thinking of this channel more as a living document where we can all create it together. So, all right, that's enough for now. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.